that it was like you were using so many combinations of board positions, right? So for example, you were having 3 to the power 9 board positions. So from all those board positions, you could select one board position depending upon that board positions index. So you had a decimal number which actually was representing an index into the indicating your board position. So based upon the choice of your decimal number, you would actually accessing a particular board position. So like that, you were making a move. So in that example, the time was very less required because directly you could make a move just by choosing a decimal number. But the problem there was that you were using actually 3 to the power 9 board positions. So that much space was required. So then we went for so it was not actually using any strategy. It was just an exhaustive search. You were having all the combinations, all the possibilities, and then from that you were choosing one possibility. So it was an exhaustive approach where you had all the combinations possible. Now, in this second approach for tic-tac-toe, you are trying to use a strategy. Okay, so we are now trying to play the game strategically. So one player is following one strategy and the other player is following the other strategy. And both of them are trying to win. So if the player wins, if the player can win, then it will try to go to that particular square where it will win. Otherwise, it will try to block the opponent's win. Okay, so there are two things over here. One thing is this data structure possible win of P. This is actually the structure that is responsible for telling us whether the player P can win on his next move or not. Okay, so if this structure possible win of P returns 0, this means that the player P cannot win on the next move. Fine. And if it can win on the next move, if that player P can win on the next move, then this particular data structure would actually return the square that will be the winning move. So it will return the number of the square that will give the winning move. So how it will check whether a particular player can win or not on the next move? So suppose it's the player X's turn. So X we are representing by 3. Fine, and O we are representing by 5. So let us say it's X's turn. So if this particular function possible win P wants to find out whether X can win or not in the next move, so it will check each row, column or diagonal so that if the product becomes 3 by 3 by 2, that means 18. So it means that in that particular row, column or diagonal, you have 2 X's and 1 blank, right? Because 3 stands for X. So 3 by 3 means X by X and 2 stands for a blank. So if the combination column or a diagonal, this means that if we fill that blank with an X in the next move, then X can win. Fine. So if you find a product in any row, column or diagonal as 18, this means that player X can win on the next move. Fine. So if we want to check for X, then we will check for the product as 18. And if we want to check for O, then we will check for the product as 50 because O is represented by 5. So that means if I want 2 O's and 1 blank, so I have to have 5 cross 5 cross 2, right? So because 5 is for O. So O and a blank for O to win in the next move. Can you hear me, students? Internet had went off. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
you're
fine. Okay, fine. In between for 1 second it went off. Okay, fine. So let us continue. So if you want to check for O, then that means you have to check for the product as 50. So if you get a 18, then that means X can win in the next move. If you get a 50 for O, that means O can win on the next move. So in this case, suppose it's X's chance and the product comes out to be 18 for any row, column or a diagonal. So then it will return this function will return the square number of the blank square, so that this x can go and fill it there, and it will win. And similarly for O. So if it's a chance of O and the product is coming out to be 50, then it will give the return the number of the square which is blank, so that O can fill itself in the next move in the blank square and it can win. If it is the chance of x and x cannot win on the next move, then it will return a 0. Similarly for O also, if O cannot win in the next move, then possible win of O will return a 0. Fine, so this is the main function which is actually used here. It's actually, if you can win, then it will return the winning move. If you cannot win, then it will return a 0. So in that case, you can try to block the opponent's win. If you cannot win, so if it returns a 0, that means you cannot win. So in that case, you will try to block the opponent's win. How you will try to block the opponent's win? So you can actually use the possible win function for the opponent player also. And if the opponent player is winning, then that will return the winning move for the opponent's player. So what you do is you go to that winning move of the opponent's player. In that case, you will fill yourself in that position where the opponent wanted to fill himself. So suppose the opponent was O and you are player X and O is winning in the next move. So what you do is you take possible win of O. So it will return the winning move for O, and then you go to that position. You go to that square. So that means you have blocked that win of O, right? So possible win is a very important function over here, which can actually let you to win also, and it can also block the opponent's win also. And make two is basically following the strategy that it will try to fill itself, that particular player, suppose it is X or O, whatever player. So it will try to fill itself in the center, that means in the blank or in the non-corner squares. So it will go to the board position, that means the square 5, or otherwise 2, 4, 6, and 8. 2, 4, 6, 8 are the non-corner squares. So this is the strategy which make two is always following, that it will go to the center or the non-corner squares. And then go n is a very simple function. It will generally go to that board position, that means the square n. So, and this will set the board n to that particular x or o. So if x is the player, then it will fill x on that nth square. If o is the player, then it will fill o on the nth square. So x is 3 and o is 5. So it will actually be 3 or 5. So these are the data structures, or you can say the functions that we will be using. Now let us see the strategy. So the strategy is that you are trying to basically each player is still playing its turn. So if it is the first player's turn, let us say X is the first player and X is the odd numbered player basically because it's the first player, and O is the even numbered player. So when turn is even, O will play. When turn is odd, X will play. So when turn is 1, so X comes and it tries to play a strategy of playing in the center corners. Okay, so X is trying a strategy of playing in the corners, and O is trying a strategy of playing in the center or the non-corners. Okay, so these are two different. So these are two different strategies. Hello. Yes, 1 minute, students. Okay, so let us continue. So there are the player X and O are playing the go to one, that means the first corner square. So then O comes in the next turn, and O is trying to play in the center or in the non-corner squares. So first of all, it will check whether the center is free or not. So if board 5 is blank means that it will try to play in the center, because board 5 means center position, right? So it will try to see if it is blank, then it will go and fill O in the fifth position. So it will go to 5. So otherwise, it will change its strategy. Fine. So if player X is following a corner strategy, then player O will try to follow a non-corner strategy. And if so, first of all, it will check for center. So it will go to 5. But suppose the fifth position is already occupied, so then it will try to reverse its strategy and it will try to play the strategy of X. So it will go to the corner position. So that's why it will go to 1. So actually X will try to play the corner strategy and O will try to play the center and the non-corner strategy. But suppose that center and non-corner strategy was already taken by X. So then it will reverse its strategy. So that is why it will, in the else part, it is written else go 1. So here it is trying to reverse its strategy and it's trying to play the strategy of X. Okay, so now it suppose it was blank, so it will go to 5 and fill in the center position. Now again X comes in the turn number 3, and then it will check for the other corner. So the other corner is indicated by 9. So you have the 9 positions, 9 squares in the tic-tac-toe. So 1, 3, 7 and 9, these are the corners, right? And 2, 4, 6 and 8, these are the non-corners. Fine. So the corner, again, another corner it is trying to occupy. So X is trying to find now the ninth corner, the square number 9. So if board 9 is blank, it will go to 9. Otherwise, it will go to 3 because 3 is also another corner. So it's trying to play in the corners. Then again, the next chance of O. So now since already two chances for X's are over, right? Two chances for X are already over in turn 1 and turn 3. X has played 2 times. So when O comes in turn number 4, so at that time it has to also check that whether X is winning or not. Suppose X has already is already winning on the next move. So it has to block that win, right? So for that one, it is trying to play a strategy. So it will use the possible win function to find out whether X is winning or not in the next move. So it will check this by using this possible win function. So if possible win of X is not 0, so when will the possible win of X be not 0? When it will be winning in the next move. So if X is winning in the next move, then it will try to block its win. So then go to the possible win of X. So suppose possible win of X is not 0, that means X is winning in the next move. So this possible win of X will return the square number of the winning move for X, right? So in that case, O will go there. Instead of allowing X to win in the next move, O will try to block the opponent's win, that means X's win, by going to that move and filling itself there. So that is why it is written then go to the possible win of X, so that to block the win of X. And suppose X is not winning in the next move, so else it will play the normal strategy of O, so it will go to make 2. Make 2 means it will go to the center and then the non-corner squares 2, 4, 6 and 8. So in the turn number 4, O is first of all checking if X is winning in the next move. So if X is winning in the next move, then it will try to block the win by going to that winning move of X. Otherwise, it will play its normal strategy and it will go to the square returned by make 2. So it had already filled the center square. So now make 2 will return some of the non-corner squares. So it will go to one of the non-corner squares 2, 4, 6 or 8 in this turn number 4. Fine. So actually, why after turn number 3 we have started checking for possible win of X? Are you able to gather that thing, students? Are you able to understand why at turn number 4 possible win of x we are checking? Okay. Okay, fine. Yes, fine. So then in turn 5 again x comes, and when x comes, since now O's turn are also, O has also played 2 times, right? So now by turn number 5, O has also played 2 times. So when x comes in turn number 5, so x also has to check whether O can win or not in the next move. So first of all, it will check whether it can win. If it cannot win, then it will check whether O can win. If O can win, then it will block the O's win. Otherwise, it will play its normal strategy. So there are three things over here. When x comes, first of all, it will check because x is now playing for the third time. Turn number 5 is the third chance of x, right? So it can be a winning move for x also. So first of all, x will check whether it can win. If it can win, then it will surely try to win, first of all. If it cannot win, then it will check whether O can win. If O can win, then it will try to block the win of O. If nothing of these sort is happening, then in the else part, it will try to follow the normal strategy of x. That is, it will try to play in the corners. Fine. So that is what is written in turn number 5 over here. So in turn number 5, if first of all, x will check if it is winning or not. So it will check if possible win of x is not 0, then it will go to the possible win of x. Because if possible win of x is not 0, that means x can win. So it will go to the winning move and it will win. Else, if it cannot win, then it will check for O. So it will check else if possible win of O is not 0, then it will go to the possible win of O. Why? Because it wants to block the win of O. So this is the blocking of win of O. So else if possible win of O is not 0, then it will go to possible win of O and block its winning move. Otherwise, if none of both the situations is happening, then X will follow its normal strategy of playing in the corners. So else if board 7 is blank, it will go to 7, else it will go to 3. So it's basically playing in the corners. So now then turn is equal to 6 comes, and then O tries to play. So now again, since it's the third chance for O, so O will also test whether it can win or not. So it will check by using possible win of O. So if possible win of O is not 0, that means O can win. So now it will go to that particular winning move. Else, if X can win, so if possible win of X is not 0, then it will go to possible win of X because it wants to block the X's win. Fine. And otherwise, it will follow the normal strategy. So else go make 2. So whatever make 2 is returning, any non-corner square, it will try to go there. So each step here, first of all, the player is testing whether it can win or not in the next move. If it can win, then it will try to win. Otherwise, it will check whether the opponent can win or not. If the opponent can win, then it will try to block the opponent's win. If none of the cases, then it will try to follow the normal technique, normal strategy. So then next turn is equal to 7 comes. Now X, so X will again try to find out if it can win or not. So X can, if possible win of X is not 0, then it will go to possible win of X. Else if O is winning, then it will go to possible win of O and block its win. Otherwise, it will follow its normal strategy, or you can also say that it can go to any blank board position. Why? Because only last 3 moves are remaining. So there is, even if you try to use the strategy, that strategy may not be applicable because only last 3 board positions are left. Last 3 squares are left. So it can go to any blank board position because that strategy may not be applicable because of the lack of squares, lack of empty squares. So it can go to any blank board position. And then when O's turn comes at turn number 8, so if possible, again it will check if it can win, then it will win. Else if X can win, so it will stop that X's win. Else it will go to any blank board position. And finally at the last turn number 9, X comes and it tries to play the same strategy. It will try to find out if it can win, then it will win. Otherwise, it will block the O's win. Otherwise, it will go to any blank board position. So here, what is happening, students? One important thing is happening over here, that if the two players are there and both of them are following their own strategies. One of them is following the strategy of playing in the corners, another is trying to play the strategy of playing in the center and the non-corners. Now, so if you see here, in this turn number 5, in the turn number 5, when X is playing, it is going to the board 7. So else if board 7 is blank, then go 7, else go 3. So it's trying to, first of all, it had went to the board square 1. Now it is going to the, then it has went to the square 9. And now it is going to the square 7 or 3. So what is actually happening? So if you see here, just see this board. So if you see here the board, the first position X had occupied, then it had occupied the 9th position, and now it is trying for 7 or 3. So is it not the strategy which you will follow? I think we follow the same strategy when we play tic-tac-toe, because what it is trying to do, X is trying to make a fork actually. It's called as making a fork because it's already occupied 1 and 9 position. So now if it occupies 7 or 3, any one of them, so it is definitely it will win in the next move. If it is able to successfully occupy 7, suppose it has already occupied 1 and 9, and now it has also occupied 7, then it is guaranteed to win, isn't it? Yes or no, students? Have you played tic-tac-toe? I think you might have realized how we play it. It's called as making a fork. So if you are already having the X in 1 and 9 position, and you also fill the X in 7 position, then it's called as making a fork. So it's basically, it will win definitely, because either it will win through the columns 1, 4, 7, or it will win through the row 7, 8, 9. Fine. So that is what is happening here also. If you see here in this algorithm, in the turn number 5, it's basically going to go 7 position, else going to 3rd position. So it's trying to make a fork. So this is the strategy which X is following by playing in the corners. And then O is following the strategy of playing in the non-corners. And they are also checking whether the other player is winning or not. If the other player is winning, first of all, they will try to block its win. Then they will play their normal strategy. So this is some kind of strategy we have applied over here. Now, some things about this program. So here this program is following some strategy. You can understand also that strategy. Some things are understandable here, that how we formulated the strategy. So but actually the thing over here is that it has reduced the space, because we are not storing now all the exhaustive combinations, 3 to the power 9 combinations we don't need, because we are following some strategy. So we don't save all the possibilities. We save only a restricted amount of moves, which we know that these could be the next moves. So actually we have saved a lot of space in terms of space complexity, but time would be more, because now we have to check various conditions before you are making a move. So before you are making each move, you have to check whether X is winning or not, whether O is winning or not. If nobody is winning, then you will play your normal strategy. So before making every move, you are checking several conditions. So that is why it is involving more time than the previous one. But of course, it is more space efficient. And it is more understandable, because you know that what strategy you are following. And you can change your strategy also. But actually, it is not generalizable, because this strategy, whatever you have chosen, that strategy applies for this particular 2-dimensional tic-tac-toe only. If I want to use a 3-dimensional tic-tac-toe which has got 27 squares, then I have to change my strategy. Right? I cannot use the same strategy. So it is still not generalizable for a 3-dimensional or higher dimensional tic-tac-toe problem. But of course, it is more space efficient and more understandable approach. So this is one good thing about this second program, second algorithm. Then we have another approach. This is a third approach. Here, this is a very sophisticated approach, and it is also generalizable actually, students. What here we are doing is, the thing is that you are having the board, and a list of board positions that could result from that current board position. Okay, so in this case, you are also having the list of next states. Basically, from each board position, whatever the next board positions can occur, that you are storing somewhere. All the possibilities which are possible from a particular board position. And then you are trying to give a quality of the solution. You are trying to give a score to each next board position. So suppose from a particular board position, you can generate 5 more board positions. By trying different combinations, you get 5 next moves. Now, out of those next 5 board positions, you will estimate that which board position can ultimately lead to a winning state. And that you will give some score. So all 5 you will give a score, and then the best scorer would be the one that would be most likely to lead to a winning state. Okay. So we generally give a score to each of the next board positions, and then we choose the one which has got the best score. So this is a very general approach, and the score is usually given by a means of a function. It's called as a static evaluation function. So that static evaluation function meaning is that it will evaluate each of the moves or each of the board positions, and it will tell that how far you are from the goal state. That means how likely you are to win. Okay, for example, let us say for winning in a row, column, or a diagonal, I need, suppose I am player X. So for X, I will need 3 by 3 by 2. That means I need a product of 18. Okay, so if I am at a product of 10, let us say, okay, not 10, let us say I have only one X and other two are blank. So if I have two X's and a blank, then it will be 3 by 3 by 2. Fine. Suppose I have one X and two blanks. So that means I have 3 by 2 by 2. Fine. So 3 2s are 6, 6 2s are 12. So I have 12 as a product. Fine. So I have 12 as a product in either a row, column, or a diagonal. But what I need is 18 as a product. Fine. So I will give a score to that current board position as 12, and that is actually 6 short of 18. Fine, that is actually 6 points short of 18. So I can say that I need to reach a goal of 18, but I am at a state of 12. So it's basically a way of assigning a score to a particular state. Just an example I'm giving, that if you want to assign a score to a particular board position, then how you can assign. So it's just an example. It's not that you have to follow this technique only in all the cases, but just I'm giving an example. Suppose you want a product as 18 and you are having the product as 12 because you have only one X and two blanks are there in that particular row, column, or diagonal. So if you have another X in that row, column, or diagonal, so then it will be a winning state for you. So that means you can say you are 6 short of the winning board position, right? Like this, you can assign different scores to different board positions, and you can estimate that how far you are from the goal state. So whichever position is very close to the goal state, that will be the best move to choose. So you will choose that particular board position. So there is always a function which is evaluating the scores. Like I told you, you can take the product and then you can take the difference in the products. So you take the product as 18 is the best move and you are currently at 12. So 18 minus 12 is 6. So basically that difference in the product can be considered as your evaluation function. So based on different evaluation functions, you can actually give the score to a particular board position. This is just for example. It's not that you use this function only in all the cases. I'm giving you just an example of how you assign the scores. So now when you assign the scores to each board position, you will choose the best move. That means the best board position and you will select that one. So this is the gist of the third approach. So what you do is you will select the highest rating board position and you will go to that board position as the next move. Suppose you are not able to win actually. Okay. If it is a winning position, then it is basically a win for you. but suppose it is not a winning position. Okay, suppose you have got 5 next board positions, and out of the 5 none of them can lead to a winning state. Fine. So in that case, if suppose out of the 5 board positions, one board position is actually a winning state, then you will win. But suppose none of them is a winning state, so in that case, you will try to block the opponent's win. Fine. So either you will try to win by giving the highest rating to that winning state, so you will win. But if you cannot win, then you will consider all the moves which the opponent could make next. Fine. And you will try to block the opponent's win. So how you will try to block the opponent's win? You will see that what all moves the opponent can make and what move will be the least worst for you. Fine. So actually the move that is the worst for the opponent, that will be the least worst for you, isn't it? So that move you can give the highest rating and you can choose that move. So basically, if you cannot win, then you will try to find out the moves which the opponent could make next, and then you will assign the ratings to each of those moves. So how you will assign the rating? The move which is the least worst for you, and the move which is the worst for the opponent, that is the least worst for you. Fine. So the move which is the worst for the opponent, that you will give the highest rating, because that move is the best one for you, because it is the worst for the opponent, so it is best for you. So you will give it the highest rating and you will choose that move and you will go to that particular move. Fine. So in this case, you cannot win, so you try to block the opponent's win by choosing the worst move for the opponent, so that it becomes the best move for you, and you assign it the highest rating and choose that move. Fine. So this is how you go about. Either you win or you try to block the opponent's win by choosing the best move for you from the next available moves. So this approach is called as the minimax approach, students. This approach where we are trying to actually maximize the likelihood of a winning and minimize the likelihood of opposite players winning. That is called as a minimax approach. Minimax. All of you please see the chat box. So this approach is called as a minimax approach. Minimax means that you are trying to maximize your chances of winning. If you cannot maximize your chance of winning, then you are trying to minimize the chance of winning of the opposite player. So it's called as minimax approach. And here this program is much more sophisticated because you are trying to find out the next possible options, and from that you are trying to find out the best option. So it is actually generalizable because you can extend it to handle the more complicated problems also. For example, if you are trying to go for a three-dimensional tic-tac-toe, the same strategy you can apply there also. You can generate the set of possible next board positions in the 3D tic-tac-toe also, and then you can give them the square using the scores using some evaluation function, and then you can assign the ratings and choose the best rating. Choose the best rating and then you can go to that move. So the same process you can apply for a higher dimensional tic-tac-toe problem also. So you can say that this approach is extendable, or you can say generalizable to higher dimensions also, or you can say to more complicated problems also. But actually, since you are trying to find out all the next possible states or the board positions, and from that you are trying to find out the best board position to move, that it will require actually much more time, because here you are trying to consider all the possible next moves, and from that next moves you are trying to find out the best one. So it's not one particular strategy you are playing, it's basically a comparison through all the next possible moves. So it is much more time taking than the other two approaches, because in the first approach you were directly using the decimal number as an index into the move table vector. Fine. And in the second approach, you were actually using the straightforward strategy of playing in the corners and in the non-corners. So you were not taking that much time because you were just checking for few conditions and then making a move. But here you are checking for all the possible next options and then you are choosing the best option to move on. So it's much more time taking than the other two approaches, because in the first approach you were trying to approach. Why an intelligent approach? Because it is generalizable. So it has one of the characteristics of an AI technique. That characteristic is generalizability. Fine. So this approach is generalizable. So you can call it as an AI technique. The other two were not having that much features of an artificial intelligence technique. So this third one we call as a truly, it has got some features of an intelligent technique. Are you able to understand, students, tic-tac-toe approaches? Any doubt up till now? Are you able to understand, students, all of you? Any doubt? Okay, fine. Okay. So now let's move on to the question answering problem. So another example I will take to tell you the difference so that we are clear about the difference between an AI or a non-AI. So it's a more simple example. Let us say you have been given a short story like this. Mary went shopping for a new coat, discovered that it went perfectly with her favorite dress. Hello? Yes. So this is a short story which is given to you, and you have to answer these questions. So, what did Mary go shopping for? What did Mary find that she liked? And did Mary buy anything? So, these are the three questions for you. And now let us study some approaches for which can answer these questions actually. So let us have the one. So what it does yes. So let us continue, students. So I was telling you that if you want to answer a particular question, then you can what you can do is you can generally in English we have some predefined question templates. Okay, and you can match against the predefined question to you to generate some. Okay, so what you So you what you do is, can you hear me, students, now? Hello? Say yes or no. Okay, fine. Hello? Hello, students. Is my voice clear now, or is it still not very clear? Okay, clear now? Okay, fine. So let me complete this topic. Okay, some issue is happening today, but let me try to finish something. Okay, so what I am saying is that, so let us continue now. Uh, is it, can you hear me, students? I, I don't know, some issue today. Okay, so yeah. So you have some predefined question templates and you try to match them with the questions. So if you have been given a question like this, what did Mary go shopping for? And you have a question template with you, what did X, Y? So in this is a question template which is predefined. Okay. So you will try to match this X and Y with the question which is given to you. So the question is given to you, what did Mary go shopping for? And you have a template, what did XY? So you will fill this XY with Mary go shopping for. Fine. And actually the answer pattern would be recognized as XYZ. So if you have this question template, okay, so here you will fill the XY as Mary go shopping for, and Z you have to fill. Fine. So what you do is you mash this answer text pattern with your input text, and then you will in the text, if you see in the story which was given to you in the input text it is given Mary went shopping for a new coat. So that is the first sentence which is given to you. Now if you see here, the text pattern that you have generated is Mary go shopping for Z. And in the input text, you have been already given that Mary went shopping for a new coat. And the input text is that Mary went shopping for a new coat. So the only difference between this Mary go shopping for Z and the input text is that it is instead of go, it is written went. Fine. It was written in the input text, Mary went shopping for a new coat. So you can make the tenses, the substitutions you can perform, and you can expand that go, went, and going. All these are actually similar things only representing the same concept. So then you can find out the answer for Z by substituting Z by the input text sentence. So in the input text, if you see here in the input text, it is written Mary went shopping for a new coat. So directly you can get the answer for Z as Z is equal to a new coat. Fine. So this is how you generate the answers in when you have a predefined question templates. But if you consider the second question, can you answer the second question? What did Mary find that she liked? Can you answer this second question using this program 1 where you have a predefined question template? So can you answer this question? What did Mary find that she liked? So what is required for answering this question? Okay, so the next question was you can answer this question actually from this predefined question template. Why? Because hello. Yes, so you cannot answer this question directly. What did what did Mary find that she liked? Fine. And so you should have a template where you should have this object of finding. So what did Mary find? You should actually have a template which has the object of find inserted between find and that she liked. Fine. So the story was Mary, she found a red one that she really liked. The question is, what did Mary find that she liked? And in the story, you have that sentence, she found a red one. So in order to extract this object of finding, we should actually have a template where we should have this object of finding Okay, so yes. So I was saying that what did Mary find that she liked? So in order to answer this question, you can actually answer this question from the second sentence. The second sentence is she found a red one she really liked. But actually, you have to have a question template which can actually match. So in order to match with this sentence, you have to have a question template which will actually have the object of find inserted between find and this phrase, this modifying phrase that she liked. And also, really word has to be inserted between she and liked, isn't it? And one more thing, here you have written she found a red one, right? But actually, the question is, what did Mary find? So it should be clear that she represents Mary. So in the question template, she should be replaced by Mary should be replaced by she, or in the input text, you should be able to replace she by Mary. Then only you can match these two question and the input text sentence, and then only you can extract the answer, right? So if you have an exact question template for that particular question, then you can extract the answer from that particular story or the input text. Otherwise, it is very difficult to answer this second question. Are you able to understand the students? Why we cannot answer the second question here using the program 1? Are you getting, students? Students, you are free. You don't have a class now, no? From 2 o'clock? Do you have any other class from 2 o'clock? Fine. So actually, I just want to complete these two, 3 slides only, and then we will stop. But actually, internet is okay. Oh yes, you have not taken any break. Okay, just give me 3-4 minutes. I'll try to finish. Okay, fine. Just because it's last 15 minutes were just wasted only. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, fine. I think they lot of trouble in internet connectivity. I don't know what is the problem. I have tried both the internet connections, but today explaining you this thing only that the second question is difficult to answer with the program 1. Why? Because you don't have an exact question template which matches the question number 2. Fine, because you don't have a question template like this which has some object inserted between find and that she liked, and also that she liked is not actually really matching with she found a red one. So she really liked. Fine. And also it's written she found a red one. But it is she is not representing Mary. We don't know that thing. So we will see that how we will do in program 2. Divya, are you there, Divya? Divya, you can take the attendance because internet is a problem today. So we will continue in the next class, students. On this Monday, we'll continue. Divya, please take the attendance and mail me the snapshot. Divya, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. She has taken. She just replied on the group. She just got disconnected.
Okay, she has already taken.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine then. So students, we will stop here because internet is a big issue today. It's not getting connected, frequently breaking. Almost 15 minutes we wasted. So we'll continue in this Monday's class. Okay, fine. Okay, thank you all of you.